mathematicians, let's talk about finding the volume of rectangular prisms. Okay, so volume is the amount of space a 3D object takes up. It's measured in what's called cubic units. A cube is like a square, all the sides are the same length, except when a square is flat, a cube has 3 dimensions. It's like something you could pick up. So when we think about volume, we're thinking about if I have this shape, and today our shapes are all rectangle bases or square bases. If I have this shape, this rectangular prism, how many little cubes can I drop inside and use to fill it all up? So if we look at this one here, we can count. Sometimes you'll see an image like the one on the left. I don't know where my pen is. Here it is. Okay. Sometimes you'll see an image like this that's, you can see the black lines that show you the total outline of the shape, but then you actually have to count the cubes in there and kind of imagine if they were all filled up. But if you started filling this and putting cubes in, and it was all filled up, it would look like this here on the right. So this one is 1, 2, 3. It has a width of 3, 3, 4, a base of 4, and a height 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 5. So what we do is we multiply those 3 together, or you could count individual ones, but that gets a little confusing because this is actually the same cube as this. You see 2 of its faces, and then there are also cubes that are on the inside middle that you can't see. So counting volume is a little bit harder than counting pictures that have squares for area. So we're going to multiply. Volume is 3 times 4 times 5, which is 60. There's 60 cubes in here. And so we say that 60 units cubed is what another way to say an exponent of 3. You could say 60 units to the 3rd power. But the 3 is there because you multiplied 1, 2, 3 numbers times each other. So we have 2 different formulas. This is the one I prefer, which has 3 parts. So you remember you have to multiply 3 numbers. I use a cursive L for length because a regular L looks an awful lot like the number 1, and I don't want to get confused there. So L for length times W for width times H for height. If you multiply those 3 dimensions, and it doesn't matter what order you multiply them in, you'll get the volume of a rectangular prism. A slightly less common area formula that you might see is a capital B, which stands for the area of the base. So when we do base times height for a rectangle, it's a lowercase b. This is a capital B, and I'll explain more in a second, times the height. So it's normally just written as capital B times H. And if you look at this picture down here, you can see that they're all separated into layers. So this is the bottom layer, the base layer. You would do 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2. 3 times 2, this bottom layer has 6 pieces in it. And then you'd multiply that area of the base, that area is 6 square units, times 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. So in this picture, you'd have a volume of 24 units cubed. Or if you just looked at the original picture and you said 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, and you wrote it as 3 times 2 times 4, then you can multiply in whatever order you want. What if I like 2 times 4 better? 3 times 8, that's still 24 units. Cubed, not squared, cubed. And honestly, this is the way I'd prefer you to do it so that I know that you recognize all 3 of your numbers and you don't forget that capital B means the area of the base and just accidentally write like 3 for what looks like the base. So this is the one we're going to stick with. Volume equals length times width times height. If you happen to see this other volume formula, now you know what it means, but we're going to go with length times width times height. Okay, so here's the first problem in your example, in your work for today. It is a picture that's not all the way filled. So you don't need to draw in the rest of it. You just need to identify your 3 important numbers. Your volume, always start with your formula, is length times width times height. Let's see, this is you can call it the length, you can call it the width, it doesn't actually matter. This side has 1, 2, 3, 4 times, notice how I'm going to count this one, even though this is the same cube right here that I just counted twice, it's also along this face for the width, so I'm counting it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 times 5 times how tall is it? I'm counting this again because that's my first layer, and then my second layer is 2 layers. It's a height of 2. And you can do 4 times 5 is 20, times 2 is 40. You can do 5 times 2 is 10, times 4 is 40. You can do 4 times 2 is 8, times 5 is 40. But basically they all equal 40. Volume is 40. That would be wrong until you said units. Or if I gave you a picture that had the units, then you'd write inches or feet or yards. Units to the power of 3, cubic units. Circle your final answer and move on to the next one.